Well, I want to continue with our series of messages that we're in. We've been answering the question, which is a one-word question of who? Who? Who is it that we want to be? Actually, the subtitle of this is deciding who I want to be. And as I've shared, that sounds very selfish. It really does, but it's not. And the reason why it's not is because all of us have to decide who we want to be. Who do I want to be? Do I want to be somebody who knows God, who has a relationship with God, who lives for God? Do I want to be someone who doesn't do that, who puts their faith and trust in something else, whatever that may be? I mean, people believe in a lot of other things in this life. We have to make the decision. And it's important for us to think about the decisions that we make and why we make those decisions. When we make those decisions, we take on a certain lifestyle, certain styles. And that's what I want to talk with you about today, that all of us have different styles. When I hear that, I think about our outward style, our fashion. It's a big thing. People have, there's different categories that you would put people in as far as what they wear. There are so many magazines that are out there today that are all about fashion. I'll give you some examples of it. For women's magazines, there's Vogue, Cosmopolitan, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, Glamour, Marie Claire, InStyle, Allure, and Vanity Fair, and some others. You're probably saying, Tim, how do you know all that? Because I researched it. Y'all, that's how much I care about this message. I researched that to find out how many there are. In the men's magazine, there is GQ, and that's the only one that matters, I guess. I don't know the other ones that it mentioned, but it's about fashion, and we start really early in life. There's another magazine called Teen Vogue. We get people looking in that direction, and it's about what we look like on the outside. It's about what people see on the outside. And believe it or not, that's important. Not necessarily to measure people by their fashion, but their appearance as far as who they are and what they do, and what that says about who they are. Fashion, clothes, many times says something about who they are. I'm one of those people who has been concerned about fashion, but I mean, clothes fashion. I mentioned this last week, Ryan Gosling, that I feel like I should look like Ryan Gosling. As a matter of fact, I was going to do this as a personal illustration today. I actually did this. I put on my Ryan Gosling clothes, and Jennifer and I looked in the mirror and said, this is a really bad idea. So I put on what I have on right now, okay? I can't pull off Ryan Gosling. I just can't do it. I don't look anything like him. But again, it's not about that kind of appearance. It's about who we appear to be, the kind of person that we appear to be. I want to teach this by looking at the life of a guy. It's talked about in the Old Testament. And he had a fashion statement. It wasn't because necessarily his clothes. We can have fashion because of our hairstyle and all of those other things, but it really was about that part. It was about his hairstyle. His name is Samson. His parents, before he was born, his mom couldn't give birth, so an angel came to her and said, hey, you're going to give birth to a child. She told her husband comes to her to see the angel as well, and he asked this angel a question. This is before the birth, and it's a really cool question. His name was Manoah, and he asked him this. He asked the angel, when your words are fulfilled, in other words, when we have a child, what is to be the rule that governs the boy's life? What are the rules that govern the boy's life and work? His life, how he lives, his lifestyle, and his work. What are you supposed to accomplish in his life? What are the rules? What is the rule about what that looks like? Well, we need to learn about that same thing. What is my life supposed to be like? What is my lifestyle supposed to look like? And what is the work that I'm supposed to do look like? I want to tell you more about the story. Samson grew up. The Spirit of the Lord began to stir in him, and he believed in God. We know that the angel had told his parents to raise him as a Nazirite. A Nazirite was a person who was committed to God and set apart to do great things for God. But there were some rules set aside for these Nazirites. One was this, that you could not eat anything unclean. The other was that you couldn't drink any fermented drink. In other words, you couldn't drink any alcohol. The other was this, that you could not cut your hair. When we look at Samson's hairstyle, it was the dreads. That's what he had. He had dreadlocks on his head. And there was a purpose and a reason why they were told not to do this. It was because when people would see their hair, it was an outward appearance. They would see their hair. It would let people know they are a Nazirite. They are committed to God to do something set apart for them to do. Well, as he got older, he decided that he wanted to get married. He went to a Philistine town to find a wife. It's important to know the Philistines were ruling over the people of Israel at this time. The Bible tells us that the Jewish people, the people of Israel, had done evil in the sight of God, and he allowed the Philistines to overtake them. And while the Philistines were over them, they didn't treat them well. They didn't treat them in a kind and godly fashion. Well, anyway, Samson goes to this town, this Philistine town, and he finds someone he wants to marry. He comes back to his parents and says, I found this woman I want to marry. He's like, why couldn't you find a Jewish girl? It's like, well, this is who I want to marry. He takes them, he takes them to see this girl in this Philistine town, and on the road, there is this lion that jumps out after them to attack them. Samson was strong. He was strong physically and was able to take that lion and rip it apart. They go and they meet the parents. Later on, Samson goes back down the same road for the wedding ceremony. As he passes by, he sees the lion and there are bees buzzing all around, and he reaches in there to grab some honey to eat. So he makes his way the rest of the trip for the marriage. During the marriage ceremony, it was custom that they would set aside 30 attendants for the one who was getting married, the male who was getting married. So he had these 30 attendants. So Samson thought, I'm going to have a little fun. I'll give them a riddle. And if they can answer the riddle, he told them, if you can answer this riddle, I'll give you 7 days. Then I will give all of you a new set of clothes. Fashion, right? I'll give you all a new set of clothes. Well, they couldn't figure it out. It's day 4. They go to his new wife and say, get Samson to tell us the answer to this. If you don't do that, if he doesn't tell you the answer to this, we're going to kill you, your dad, and your dad's household. So she went to him and nagged him, pressured him to give her the answer, and he did. She goes to these Philistines, gives them the answer, and they come and tell it to Samson. Well, Samson obviously knew what had happened for them to be able to answer that question, and he got really angry about it. He went out and he found 30 Philistines, and he killed those Philistines, took their clothes, and took it to his 30 attendants. He was so angry after this that he stormed off and left the city. Well, the dad of his new bride noticed this and saw this, like, dude, he's out of here. He's not coming back. So he gave her to one of those 30 attendants, and they got married. Well, Samson did show back up. He comes back into town and now finds his wife is married to this other man, and now he becomes even more angry, and he finds all of these foxes, ties their tails, puts a torch in them, lights them, and sends them out in the field, and it burns up all of their crops. Just wipes it all out. Well, the Philistines are so angry at what Samson did, they went to Samson's wife and killed her and her dad. She was trying to get out of dying and her dad dying, and now what she was trying to get out of happened in her life. Well, the story goes on. There's a lot of stuff that happens, and there's another wife that comes on the scene. Somebody he marries, her name is Delilah. That's probably who you hear most about in Samson. Samson and Delilah. Delilah wasn't someone who was living to protect herself, not to die or whatever, because of these other people. What she wanted was she wanted to gain something out of this marriage. Obviously, Samson was really strong, and the Philistines were a bit afraid of him. And they wanted to find out the source of his strength, because here's this Jewish guy, and hey, if he turns on us, this isn't going to be good. So they wanted to find the source of strength, so they come to Delilah and said, go to Samson and find out where his strength comes from. So she does, and she says to Samson, where's your strength? Samson said this, if you tie me up this way, then I won't have strength. So she ties him up, he's asleep, and then she wakes him up and says, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. They actually were hiding in another room. But he woke up, tore them off, and showed that he had strength. Doesn't say the Philistines came in. I think they were still probably crouching in the other room. Second time it happens. Samson, how do you do it? So he tells her how his strength. 3 times he does this and never does he tell her the truth. Finally, the scripture says that she nagged him. Okay, she nagged him, and finally he told her the source of strength, that if you cut off my hair, I will lose all my strength. She did that, tied him up. The Philistines, she yelled, the Philistines are amongst you. He couldn't get out. They came and took him and arrested him. They gouged his eyes out. They put him in a place where he grinded grain. And it came time for a big festival for the Philistines. They thought, you know what, this will be fun. Let's get Samson and take him out out next to the temple area, and we'll put him between some columns and get him to entertain us. And the entertainment was for him to try to push it down because they knew he had lost his strength. But Samson's hair had started to grow back. And when his hair began to grow back, he began to regain his strength, and he prayed to God, God, please give me the strength so I can wipe this people out. And he did. I want to read some scripture to you about that part of the story. Y'all, I told you a bunch of it. There's some scripture on your outline sheet. The first part of it I'm going to skip over because I already said that. In verse 30 of Judges chapter 16, it's the second portion down. It says this, Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than when he lived. Then his brothers and his father's whole family went down to get him. And it just talks about them going and getting his body. Here's what we need to know. Everything that happened in Samson's life was for a reason. Even him killing the 30 Philistines because they got the answer from his wife. Everything that happened, because in all of this, God was bringing judgment on the Philistines and gained the greatest judgment in this last endeavor. And what happened? Here's the reason. He wanted for the Jewish people to be released and to be protected. They had been treated in an ungodly way because the Philistines lived for themselves and of the world. That was their lifestyle. Yet the Jewish people were turning back to God. So what is your lifestyle? Are you one who lives for the world, or are you one who lives for God? Samson definitely had one. Well, before I get into all that, I want to talk to you just a little bit about style, because it'll lay some groundwork for some other things that we'll learn. On your outline sheet, we need to determine something. We need to determine our style. To do that, we first of all need to know what style is. There is a description there for you. It says a particular kind, sort, or type as with reference to form, appearance, or character. Those 3 words are very important when it comes to knowing what style is. First of all, it's form. So on your sheet, fill this in. It's about form. Things take on certain forms. A form is made up of boundaries. Like I take on a form. My physical body takes on a form. There's a boundary that makes me up. You can see it. We look at a square. A square has boundaries. It's a form. It's an image, right? We can see all that. We, in our bodies, our physical bodies, take on certain forms. Some people say, you know, they're tall, they're short, they're large, they're skinny. They have all of these different forms. There are some specific forms. Some people say they have the hourglass form, right? They look like this. Some people say they have the pear form. Okay? Some people say they have the reverse pear form. All right? Some people say they have the Michael Phelps form. I just realized the other day, not only do I have a little pear form, I also have the Michael Phelps form. And you're probably wondering, what in the world is that? Michael Phelps is the greatest Olympian who's ever lived. He's had the most medals. It's incredible. He is a swimmer. He's got a very unique body. His upper torso is very long and his legs are very short. Now, y'all, I'm not making fun of him at all. This is how his body. The reason why he is such a great swimmer is because of the shape of his body and his strength. I was looking in the mirror the other day. Let me give you a little information about this. My dad always told me, as I went through school, Tim, he's like 6 foot tall, right? You're going to grow, you're going to grow, you're going to grow. And, you know, I grew late. It was like my last year of high school, I finally grew up. And I went through my last year of high school, and I didn't get 6 feet tall. He's a liar. All right, my daddy is a liar. All right, that's how I felt about it. You didn't tell me the truth. Anyway, it's my body. Well, the other day, I realized something. I was looking at myself in a mirror, which I enjoy doing, and I was looking at myself in a mirror, and I noticed something. My legs my leg, okay, I'm old. It's like it's an epiphany. My legs seem short. And I've always noticed I've always had to, pull up my jeans higher than most people, like toward the belly, but it's kind of that high to make it. And I finally figured it out. Oh, my soul, I am Michael Phelps. That's what I thought. I am Michael Phelps. I've got this Michael Phelps form. I told Jennifer. Jennifer's like, look at which is not a good thing. But anyway, she came and looked just like, she didn't disagree with me. All right, I told her this is what happened. My dad told me I was going to be 6 foot. The top part of my body believed that, but the bottom of my body didn't believe it. If my legs were long enough, I'd be 6 foot tall. This doesn't have a whole lot to do with the message. Oh, yeah, it does. Because of form, you take on a certain form. All right, all that was physical. But what about our spiritual form? How can we think about that? I want you, and again, this is a visual in your mind that I encourage you to have. But we take on a spiritual form, and I want to use as an illustration a triangle, okay? That we, as in our spiritual form, would be in the form of a triangle. Those are the boundaries of our form. That boundary is really important. If you'll look on the screen, it's not on your outline, but if you'll look on your screen, you'll notice these. Let me just kind of add something to this. The reason why I use this as the spiritual form is because it really illustrates something about who we're supposed to be in our lifestyle and how we interact with other people. I want you to think about God being here. This is kind of like a relationship diamond. God being here, me being here, you, and then another person being here. So God here, me here, you here. What happens is the closer we come to each other and care about each other, right, the more we become godly. The more we do this as Christians, the more we care about people, the more we lead people to God. So the more committed I am to God as a Christian, the more I'm moving this way, the more I'm influencing the person over here to also move toward God, to know God. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. Now, this is the form, the image. Here are the boundaries. If I am living inside the boundaries of the triangle, I maintain my shape. If I live outside of the boundaries, I lose my shape. Inside the boundaries, this is what happens. I love other people. It gives me that form. I love other people. If I'm outside the boundaries, I love myself, not other people. So what happens is I no longer live for God. My line starts getting warped, and it warps out like this. It's starting to warp out outside. I've lost my form. Here's another one. I have a concern for others. Because I love others, I'm concerned about others. That's giving me my form, my line. But if I have a concern for myself, I'm more concerned about things in the world, I lose my form. Because I love each other and have concern for each other, I serve other people, right? I serve other people. That's the line. It's the boundary. But if I serve myself, I lose my form. It begins to warp and goes out like this. If I am living the Christian life the way I'm supposed to, I'm a diamond. I am leading you, another person, closer to God. Y'all, this is sweet right here because I love you, I'm concerned about you, and because I'm serving you. It's not about serving myself, it's about serving you. So when we go through life and we're making decisions like, am I a triangle, or am I a weird-looking blob? Because that's what it would look like. It's just these lines going all over the place. This is great. The more we trust in God, the more we love God, the more those lines that were out toward the world start coming in and forming that triangle again. But there might be some areas in your life that are keeping that from happening. It's form. Here's the second thing that we can learn, not only about form, but we learn about appearance. It's about appearance. And appearance is an outward thing. Appearance is how people look on the outside, clothes and all that, when we look at it in a worldly perspective. But I want you to think about it not in a worldly perspective, but again, in a spiritual perspective. Appearance, again, is what people see. What people see about us is our actions, what we do. It's our lifestyle. It's how we live. Our lifestyle is how it is that we live. I was reading something last week. It was a leadership article, and I read a lot of stuff like that just to help me in my own personal life. But I was reading a leadership, and it didn't come from a Christian source. It came from this other secular source, and it talked about 10 toxic people that you are to stay away from. 10 toxic people to avoid. And I want to share with you what those toxic people are because, again, I think we can get some personal application from this. First of all, the gossip. Now, later on during the week after I read this statement by Eleanor Roosevelt, which is awesome. I know it doesn't come from the Bible. I get that, but I want you to hear what she said about gossip. Great minds discuss ideas. Average ones discuss events, things that happen. And small minds discuss people. Isn't that great? I thought that was really awesome. That, I'm just so much of a weak person. All I can do is just talk about other people because I'm trying to find my value, I guess, from other people. And I become a gossip. Here are some other ones. The victim is like, poor, pitiful me. Those are people to avoid, right? Toxic people. The self-absorbed, the envious of what other people have. The manipulator, the dementor. A dementor is somebody who's highly negative all the time. The twisted derive satisfaction from the pain and the misery of other people. That's what the twisted people do. The judgmental. You know who those are. The arrogant. And then there's one more, the temperamental. I want you to think about those. I know they're not on a screen or whatever. What I believe is that as I went through those, if you struggle with one of those, maybe it came to your mind. Maybe the Holy Spirit just kind of helped you see, that's a weakness for me. I'll tell you mine. Mine is temperament. Temperament is all about emotions and how you respond to other people. It's about other people. As a matter of fact, I want you to fill in the next statement. I think there's a statement under appearance. Is there a statement under appearance? It's about appearance. It says, how do we treat people? Okay, that's basically what we're talking about. Okay, let me get back to temperament. Temperament is an emotional thing. I've talked about this so much, and I apologize for doing it, but I'm bipolar, okay? And this is the reason why this connects with me personally. I'm bipolar. I'm diagnosed bipolar. I'm on medication. I've been on medication for a gazillion years. I've struggled with it for a long time. And bipolar, you're either on top of the world or you're on the bottom. And man, for a long time, I didn't have medication, and I was all over the place. Well, I've been on medication for a while, and, I've been on the high side. Bipolar people never, even when they're on medicine, they're never like this. I mean, it's just very rare for that. You're either a little high or a little low or a little high. Some people, depending on the effectiveness of what they're on, a little high or a little low. I've been here. I've been on this high for a really long time. I'm serious, for a really, really long time. And when I'm on that high, I'm really personable, funny, those kind of things. That's just my personality. That's how I am. But when I'm low, I'm very quiet. I'm not angry. I don't yell at people. I don't do things like that. Usually I get irritated with people, and people can sense my irritation, but normally, I'm more the quiet type. I mentioned that I've been on the high side for a long time. Well, that ended about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Boom, went down low. And I'll tell you what happened. Usually it's some event that throws people like me into that other realm. It's what we're dealing with the coronavirus. It's not the heartache that people were feeling about it. We've been praying for people and all of that. It's been how to deal with it when you're responsible for a lot of other people as a leader. Because we've been spending a lot of time talking about when we do come back to church, what does that look like? What are we going to be doing to make sure we do this in the right way? Well, I've had very strong opinions about it. I feel like this, feel like this, feel like this. Other people have different opinions about that, obviously. And some of those opinions have been shared, not necessarily just one person. A few people have shared different opinions. And it really bothered me that, and y'all understand people don't agree with me. But that's honestly, as a leader, usually this is the way I mentioned this before. I love going into meetings because I'll bring in an idea about something, and people have different ideas about that, and when we leave, it's a whole lot better than it was when I came in. I love that. I love that. But for some reason, this whole thing about what we should do with the coronavirus and the different opinions just really bothered me. really, really bothered me that people didn't agree with my opinion. I'm that, and I realize this, y'all. People are going to have, when I say this, a lot of you are going to have a different opinion of what I just say. I am hyper protective. Okay? I go to the extreme of what is the safest, most possible thing that we can do. Okay? I'm hyper protective. Then there are other people who are not so. And it's not that they don't care about people's health. Y'all, please don't listen to me say that. I know they care about people's health, but they're not quite where I am, in that they believe we can do this and be safe. And, and some people's like this, well, I'm not going to do that, or I will do this, or I'm not going to do this, or whatever, all this stuff. And I guess the manner in which I took that and how I felt people said what they said about it, I took it personally. I really, really took it personally. And I was temperamental. I went from this, hey, fun, hey, to this, man, I just don't want to be around anybody. And I was in a couple of meetings. It started staff meeting a couple of weeks ago. I was thinking about things. All this wasn't necessarily stuff in that staff meeting, but, and it was all happening already. And I wasn't a good leader in that staff meeting because I got irritated about a couple of things, and it's not good. All right? I was temperamental. My behavior, my emotions were getting, I say the best of me. They weren't, because I'm in control. But I really acted in a way I just didn't feel, man, I shouldn't have done that. So the whole week went by. I went through the week. I had another meeting with another couple of people. I felt like, man, I said some things in that. My attitude about that, I just didn't feel good about that. So then it's like staff meetings coming up again, and I need to address this because I want people to know that I realize what I did, and I want forgiveness from these people. So I did a devotion. It was the worst devotion I think I've ever done in my entire life, all right? My devotion was about 3 verses, and it was about being kind. And I gave the devotion, I read the scripture, and I said, y'all, this devotion is not for any of y'all, it's for me. Because last week, I wasn't kind in the staff meeting, and I just want to apologize, and I'm sorry. And I hope at the end of this staff meeting, I don't have to do this devotion again. And I closed my Bible, and I said about 10 words the rest of the meeting. Seriously. Because I knew if I said anything, I was afraid of what I would say. But did you know not saying anything, I think, led some people? I don't know how people, all of them, felt in the room. I don't know. Maybe some people weren't affected this way. Maybe they were. But I came home, and it's like, Jennifer, I didn't say hardly anything. And I said, you know what? I felt like I did this for the whole staff. I lost the trust of the staff today. I'm just like, what happened? And I said, because she knew I was struggling with some of this. I said, well, I read some scripture. I apologized for what I did. And then I didn't say 10 words the rest of the time. I just got really quiet. I didn't say anything else. And you're probably thinking, well, what's the problem with that? Because they couldn't trust emotionally how I was responding to what was happening going on. I mean, if I would have been that person, I would have probably looked at this like, man, they just really, how can I trust that person to, react in a good way when things get tough? Because here he is, and he's just shut up and hadn't said anything for this whole hour that we've been in this meeting. And I came home, and I was just gripped to the heart of, Jennifer, I just lost the trust of the staff. They can't trust me to emotionally respond to things in a good way. And y'all have been this way. I've been, for a long time, since I've been on medication, it's really honestly been, hardly ever had problems. Before I was on medication, dude, honestly, there's probably some staff, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't the main reason. Maybe it was a part of the reason that they left. I don't know, because maybe they couldn't trust how I was going to react to things. I'm a lot better now, but it brought all that back to my mind. It brought that back to my mind. And then I started thinking about, okay, this is my lifestyle. People were seeing this. They can't trust me to emotionally respond the right way. Why am I this way? And it's because of the third thing on your outline sheet. It's because of character. It's about character. I'm going to end with this part of it. Obviously, I'm out of time. It's about character. Well, hold on. I want to read a scripture to you. I got ahead of myself a little bit there. What we know about character is not so much about the outside, it's about the inside. Character is about what you believe in. It's about what you have faith in. If I have faith in this, that'll lead me to act a certain way. If I have faith and trust in God completely and how he sees me, I will act a certain way for God, to lead people toward God, to lead people to trust in him. That's the way I'll be. If I believe that my value is found in something else, I believe that, so I'm going to look to that to define my value. Jesus said something about this. I read it last week. It was part of the message. It says this in Mark chapter 7. Again, Jesus called the crowd to him and said, listen to me, everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside a person can defile them by going in them. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles them. Then he said this. He went on, what comes out of a person is what defiles them. What comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. It's about the heart. Let me tell you what it happened to me. And y'all, I'm just being honest with you. I feel I'm better. It's like I'm still struggling. I try to get out of this, and my bipolarness makes it a little bit more difficult for me. But my heart situation is this. Like my belief, I know in my head that my value is about God and not about the opinions or of anything. And y'all, everybody's right. Y'all, I'm not victimizing myself. I don't want you to feel like he's just a victim. Everybody's coming together. That's not this at all. Please don't take it that way. It literally is this temperamental part of it. Here's my issue, my heart issue. I stop finding my value in God, and I start believing that my value is in the opinion of other people and how they feel about me. Do they like me? Do they accept me? Do they agree with me? Do they all this stuff? Because that's where I have begun finding my value. And y'all, usually, this is really weird to me because I make big, hard decisions all the time, literally all the time as a pastor, and don't go through this. All the time. I know I'm going to decide this person's going to get upset, this person's going to get upset. All the time I have to do that. And for whatever reason, this thing affected me. But what's my problem? I care about what people think about me, whether they agree with me, what they say about me, what they this or what that or what this. You know what my problem is? It's not what people have done or said or their opinions. It's about me and my heart and my character. And I revealed my character the other day in a staff meeting. I did. As a self-centered person, just by being quiet and not saying 10 words. Being temperamental. Here's the problem. It's all about trust. I'll end with this. The triangle. You can't lead people to trust in God if people don't trust in you. And that's really, am I putting this message together? I think this is the biggest thing that has affected me in preparing for this. If people don't trust me to behave a certain way and emotionally respond to certain things, if they can't trust me, I'm toxic. It's a toxic behavior. If they can't trust me, I will never be able to lead that person to trust in God. It won't happen. I don't want this to be about me. I want this to be about the lesson of this. If you're a gossip, people don't trust you, and you can't lead somebody to trust in God. If you're a victim, you can't lead people to trust in God. If you're judgmental, you can't lead them to trust in God. If you have any of these struggles whatsoever, you can't lead people to trust in God. My hope is that you don't struggle with any of these. I haven't met that person, I don't think, yet. I don't know. Maybe there are people who don't at times struggle with these things. Seriously, maybe you don't. Maybe I have met people who don't struggle with them. But what I have to remember is I was a terrible pastor this past week. And more importantly, I was a terrible Christian this past week. So the good news is I know it. and I'm trying to do something to fix it, because what I really know in my head is that I find all of my value in God, and it doesn't matter whether people agree with me or not. This is the question at the end. Do you find all your value in God, and does your lifestyle, what people see on the outside, reveal what your character really is?